over one really good flying lap around the Grand Prix circuit, and as we keep on saying, it's a fabulous track, brilliant flow, but you go slightly offline and then it's a different beast.
Well, certainly a number of drivers were caught out this morning by going offline, mainly due to the fact that overnight rain was still gathering on some of the curbs, the red and white marked curbs around the circuit. Laurens van Thor got caught out in his Audi. We saw one of the Bentleys going off, that of Maximilian Buch, and it went off, in fact, so badly that the car, regrettably, is unable to take part in any further proceedings this weekend. The chassis took a pretty substantial impact around the crushable zone, and even the other Bentley had gone off earlier in the first practice session this morning with, we believe, a brake, an ABS.
Yes, that's what Jules Simkowiak told me, but now he and his partner in crime, Olivier Lombard, neither driver has ever driven here before, are carrying all of Bentley's hopes this weekend, so a lot of pressure on their shoulder. Cars already starting to go out onto the circuit. One of the cars that had problems early on was, of course, the number one Audi, and that was one of the cars in trouble with Laurens van Thor. So conditions fine, all going out onto the circuit, but pit lane very busy. But let's take a look back at the mishaps of this morning. So conditions, as you can see in practice, were grey, and the Fjordback car Audi went off at Paddock Hill Bend, just simply ran out of circuit on the way in, and the biggest crash of all was poor Maxi Buch, slightly wide coming down the hill, and just spun the car around, and a big impact with the barriers. That's the end of that Bentley's weekend, John. Yeah,
a big impact. Maxi Buch, not the biggest racing driver you've ever met, and he felt like a bit like a pinball wizard as he bounced around inside the roll cage of the car. But
Audis were very quick this morning, John, and Christopher Mies was second fastest, really making the number 2 Audi fly. And again, great to see it around the Grand Prix part of the circuit, a real chance for the drivers to get stuck in. But fastest of all was Craig Dolby, sharing the Nissan with Sean Walkinshaw, top of the table. Will it be this afternoon?
Well, there is one of the cars that got into trouble this morning, driven by the ace driver in an Audi. That was Laurens van Thor, just at this part of the circuit on the exit, coming through Westfield Bend, put a wheel over the curb. The car lost control, spun backwards, did some damage around the back of the car, more superficial than it was of any concern. Robin Freins in the car now, but nevertheless, it just illustrated that in the lower temperatures we had early this morning, when track conditions, track temperature was low, the ambient was low, we had a strong wind blowing, none of the gorgeous sunshine that we are now enjoying in the late afternoon here at Brands Hatch. Track conditions obviously have improved a great deal. There's been other events taking place, but primarily the ambient temperature and track temperature are now at a much more suitable level.
So, of course, Robin Freins didn't get to race in the opening round of the championship down at Nogaro. He is out in that number 1 Audi. He's topping the timesheets at the moment, but we're really waiting for a representative flying lap. The target time should be around the 1 minute 24s. They could dip into the 1 minute 23s. They did last year for Paul Jeroen Blekemolen, 1 minute 23.865 seconds in a Lamborghini Gallardo last time around. Let's see what we can achieve this afternoon. I think conditions absolutely perfect, and for Robin Freins, this is his chance. He's crossed over from single-seaters. He's got to now start putting down a marker. He's not a lone single-seater driver who's turned to GTs. He's one of many, but he's one of the latest.
Yes, and he's one of the best as well. I mean, he's got a pedigree in single-seater racing, which is just outstanding. And WRT are very aware of many, many young drivers who currently are no longer in the single-seater driver market. And there's a great opportunity, a great career ahead for the ones that really are the special ones in GT racing, GT3 here in the Blancpain Sprint and in Blancpain Endurance Series.
We already have a good time in the 1 minute 24 set. Marco Siegfried topping the 333 Ferrari, but Robin Freins, we've just seen him come through Stirling's. He's now down into Clearways, turning into Clark Curve in the number 1 Audi. Will he go to the top of the timesheets?
Well, he may do on this lap, but Christopher Mies in one of the sister Audis, currently fastest in the first sector overall, personal best. Not that many drivers have done a lot of running, they're only on their second laps in some cases, so we're going to see a lot of times changing very, very quickly. 124.9 quickest lap so far, 0.4 of a second slower than we saw Craig Dolby achieve this morning in the Sean Walkinshaw Racing Nissan GTR.
Riding now with one of the British drivers in the field, that's James Nash, just gone second fastest, the number 4 Audi. Up to Druids he goes and tries not to use too much circuit on the outside, and then down the hill, back into the stadium section of the track, going through Graham Hill Bend, quite a tight corner these days. Behind the pits and paddock there, using the curbs and a little bit two wheels onto the dirt on the outside or on the concrete under the grass, as many of the drivers do. They put 4, that's not so good, may not be allowed. Now, through Surtees, up over the rise, and then soon be going down Pilgrim's Drop. This is a serious part of the circuit, John. Down under the bridge, and then the next corner, one of your favourites.
Yeah, this is a real road circuit, but it's a permanent racetrack. Into Hawthorne's Corner, you can carry a lot more speed in than you might initially think when you make your first visit to that particular corner. Then straight away on the brakes into Westfield, then down again, down the hill, dingle dip the compression, then you point skywards. Where's the apex? Well, there it is. It just picked it up right now. You can't see it at the point you have to commit. Stirling's Bend, a much more straightforward, more simple corner, but one on the outside that catches many out. That curve on the outside of Stirling's can be tricky.
Well, each of these segments, 3 segments of qualifying, we only have 15 minutes in each, but I've just noticed the number 0 BMW still sitting in the pit lane, waiting for that to go out. They're just putting some wheels on the car, but they're playing a very different game to the 17 cars that are out on track at the moment. So that's Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez, who finished 3rd here in the race last year. Let's ignore them for now. James Nash, did he improve that time around? He did, stays in 2nd place. He's just over half a second behind the Ferrari of Marco Seefried. Now, the number 3 Audi with Stefan Richelme, so strong in the feature race at Nogaro, 4th fastest at the moment. And again, that Audi, all the Audis look so well balanced around the twisty back part of the circuit.
Fastest first sector time, personal best, which is about just under 3/10 away from what would be the optimum 2nd sector time. So clearly we're going to see an improvement from Stefan Richelme, presently in 4th place in the number 3 Audi on a 1:26.090, so this should be something a high 24, and Richelme's done a 25.2, not maybe as good as we thought, but certainly good enough to put him 2nd quickest at present.
2nd quickest, and I just want to report that the 0 BMW is out of the pit lane now and just going around Druids, so it is coming out to play. 8 minutes remaining.
Still waiting to see Kevin Estre in the McLaren, who has gone fastest in the 1st sector. Looking to see Sean Walkinshaw in the Nissan GTR, obviously a personal best. It's his first flying lap in the Nissan, so 2 cars that potentially, especially the Nissan, that was so impressive this morning.
Now, one of the cars that hasn't set a flying lap yet, but just set a purple sector time, is number 55, beautifully picked up there, the McLaren 650S, Kevin Estre on board, sharing this with Rob Bell, but at the moment it's Estre doing all the work out in Q1. And let's see, the 1st sector he's purple, the 2nd sector of the 3 sectors he's purple, and he's the car twitching and dancing around as it comes off the Grand Prix loop, through Clearways, through Clark Curve, now onto the start-finish straight. The target time, 1:24.946. Is that to be bettered? 1:24.234 of a second, 7/10 clear of Marco Seefried's bright green Ferrari, number 333.
McLaren showing a clean pair of heels here at Branch Hatch in the late afternoon sun, and a strong run, 7/10 of a second quicker than the Ferrari. And they've got the Brazilian BMW running with Attila Abreu 3rd place, and that's only just about 36/100ths of a second behind the 2nd place Ferrari.
Yeah, Abreu looking very strong indeed. He's got a purple sector time in sector 2, coming round to complete his lap, just going through Clearways now. We'll keep an eye on that. The 73 car, here he comes, start-finish line. Let's just count that down. Riding with the Nissan Nismo, we'll wait for that. That's sitting down in, and Estre is still top, and the 77 BMW in 2nd place. But let's watch the power of this mighty Nissan, number 73. So strong in the 1st session, even stronger in the 2nd sector.
Now, there's a big change on that Nissan. Blink, and you'll never see it. Keep your eyes open, and you might see it. It's actually gone from being its original colours of white, black, and red into a very, very sort of light, almost duck egg blue. In the bright sunlight, it doesn't show up so well. In the darker skies we had this morning, it was more obvious. But it is a colour change to try and make the car less like some of the other vehicles that we are going to be watching here this afternoon.
Now, of course, we should explain it. Sean Walkinshaw in the car at the moment. In Q2, it will be Craig Dolby, and then, providing they're in the top half of the field, we'll have Dolby going out again in the shootout in Q3. Each of these sessions only 15 minutes.
Walkinshaw, second quickest.
Second quickest. And what's the difference? Just under half a second. So he's pushed Attila Abreu in the 77 BMW back behind him. So the potential for this car, I mean, Craig Dolby's been bouncing up and down on his on his feet all weekend saying it's going to be quick, and it's proving it.
Well, not only is the car quick, it looks like Nissan have got two fast drivers, Sean Walkinshaw, Craig Dolby. They didn't have maybe the most fortune in Nagaro, the first round of the Blancpain sprint. They got knocked out in the first race, and consequently they paid the price.
Glad we talked about how the zero BMW with Caca Bueno on board was very late out. There wasn't a problem, that's just how they wanted to run the session. Running over the curbs there at Graham Hill Bend, 4th fastest on his first pucker flying lap. He's 0.7 of a second down on Kevin Estre. Let's see what Caca can do. So much success in Brazil in touring cars, stock cars, 5 times the champion, but very strong here last year as well.
Yes, and also, you know, I know it's an old cliche, but when the sun shines, the Brazilians perform. When it's wet, cold, windy, they sort of withdraw within themselves.
Ever the dilemma for Brazilian drivers coming up to race in the UK, and have been so many since Emerson Fittipaldi led the way all those years ago. But think of the pressure in that garage. That's Valdeño Brito looking on to see how the sister car, the 77 car, is. Sorry, he's of course sharing with Bueno. He's watching that, and it's Brito who has to wait in the garage with the other one. But they're 3rd and 4th at the moment, the BMWs, and of course they were winners in the opening sprint series round. So the game has to be raised.
Well, the game certainly was raised in Nagaro. Maxime Martin and Dirk Muller won the main race in Easter Monday in Nagaro. So the team have got a car that is competitive, and all of a sudden that realisation's filtering through, and we're seeing performances from the team.
Well, using the curbs and more yet again, but no improvement that time around. So Caca Bueno in the 0 BMW stays in 4th place. It's the McLaren 55 on top. Walkinshaw's Nissan in 2nd place, and then the 77 BMW has the bragging rights over the sister car, number 0. Rather more conservative line over the curbs there at the bottom of Graham Hill Bend for Caca Bueno. Going through Surtees now, out into the country to see what he can do. Anybody setting great times? Yes, a purple sector time for McLaren 55. Kevin Estre on board. Got to complete that lap, but yes, looking very good indeed.
But with just over 3 minutes remaining, most likely most driver car combinations have had their run. We'll wait to see whether the Kevin Estre time, indicating that actually he's back in the pits, but it seems he's also got a fastest sector time in sector 2. So that's slightly confusing information coming from timing and scoring. But there we're back with the 0 BMW car, currently in 4th place, Caca Bueno.
Well, he's just set his fastest first sector time, and of course with so many cars in the pit lane, glance out the window, you can see about a dozen of them lined up. He's pretty much got the track to himself, so maybe it was a very clever tactic indeed.
It depends just on what you've done on your tyres, whether you waited, taking the chance that the tail end of the session, when most people will be back in the pit lane, and then you have a run. So 4th place currently at 124.9, 124.939. His best time has not seen any improvement in overall position.
No, so just a quick refresher, just over under 2.5 minutes remaining. It's McLaren top with the number 55, the time set by Kevin Estre. What's happening down in the pit lane, of course, is a little bit of calm, but not too much calm, because we only have a 7-minute break after the end of this, and then it's time for the second driver in each car to go out in Q2 to do their business over 15 minutes.
So we will very quickly see, as everybody pretty much coming into the pit lane, and just 2 minutes remaining. So the tyre situation really is what's dictating how much running people want to do in a given. So if you can retain as much of the best of the tyres as you have to give you 2 sets, ideally 2 new sets for the qualifying race on the Sunday morning and then the main race in the afternoon.
Albert von Turnen Taxis has the track to himself, just crossing the start-finish line in the black and white Reiter Engineering Lamborghini Gallardo. Rather delicate line around. I think he was a bit late, was he not, John?
I think he may have been a little bit wide on the apex, but he may have been actually on an in-lap. He probably decided that it wasn't critical to take the ultimate line through Paddock Hill Bend. And so he's making his way back, essentially, to the pits as we go back to the number 1 Audi, which is currently down in 6th place. So Robin Freehan's behind the wheel, personal best in that first sector. Nothing remarkable in the second, but still a strong time, 37.8.
No, I think he's come back off it. The first sector was very strong, but the fastest second sector time, nearly 3/4 of a second better than has been achieved by Robin Fritz. But they're so short on track time. Coming around to complete the lap, just under a minute to go. Let's see, does that move him up the order? No, it doesn't. He's 6/1000 slower than his best, but he still remains 0.9 of a second off the ultimate.
And Robin Freehan's lost out quite badly because he didn't get any running at all in the second practice session this morning. Consequently, he needs track time. He needs more time in the car than Laurens van Thor. So I think that the team are doing the most they can to give him that opportunity.
Just saw Kevin Estre putting his point across. The 55 McLaren that he drove is top of the timesheets at the moment. Of course, the times from Q1 and Q2 get eliminated effectively after the fastest 10 cars have been extracted from those for Q3, but it's still bragging rights. He wants to see if the car can be changed. Rob Bell will be going out next. Out on track is a car that's been troubled all session. We saw it go off in practice this morning, 74 Anders Fjordbach Audi, and it's down outside the top 10 on the timesheets at the moment, down in 17th of the 18 runners. And again, that needs track time. He's 2.7 seconds away from the fastest time. Does he bring it down this time? Yes, he shaves a little bit more, 2.4 seconds off the best pace. So not in the fastest of the Audis. That was in fact the fastest Audi was Robin Friends in the end, down in 6th place, but McLaren have the advantage. And there you can see Kevin Estre just explaining the flow, and this Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit is about flow.
Yeah, I mean, it's a circuit, flow, rhythm, whichever adjective you choose to use to describe it. It is a circuit of almost continuous corners. There is barely what you would call a pure straight. Even Hawthorne Straight, down Pilgrim's Drop, there's a curve before you get there, and of course then at the end of what is the remaining part of the straight, you've got Hawthorne's Corner. Even what might be described as pit straight here at Brands Hatch starts at the exit of Clark into Clearways, and it continues a very shallow curve all the way up to Paddock Hill Bend. And part of the nature of Brands Hatch is such, when you've got such equal balance in terms of performance of the cars we've got here this weekend, the job of overtaking in a racing context becomes a challenge, more of a mental game than it is just simply of pushing your way forward. You've got to work out where your strengths are and where you can maybe catch somebody slightly unawares.
Now, of course, with the Blancpain Series qualifying process, we have the second driver in each of these cars going out in this session. And a lot of them did their first run early to give the biggest gap before this session starts, to talk about the car and get it set up for the second driver. And we're going to be going underway very soon. The gap between the end of the first session, Q1, and the start of Q2, only 7 minutes. So look, you can see the shadow on the pit lane there from the cameraman. Car's looking fabulous, John. Yes,
it's looking shiny and new. It'll not look like that by the time we get through two 1 hour events on Sunday. So just all's quiet in the pit lane, but here, in fact, looking back at Kevin Estre as he put the McLaren, see, look, he got the back end of the car beginning to step out of line, just coming out of Dingledell, then through Sterling's. I mean, Kevin is an aggressive, grab the car by the scruff of the neck and throw it into the corner. Great skill, of course, behind the wheel, but he's the master of the McLaren.
He is. The 650S new this year, and you could see it snaking and squirming, but all along the foot was planted. Best lap, 1 minute 24.324. Top of the pile for now. So all looks calm in the pit lane from that wonderful elevated angle, but you can be sure it's not. There's plenty of pressure down there. At the moment, it's McLaren top from Nissan, and then 2 BMWs, a Ferrari, and then 6th. I didn't think we'd see an Audi, the best Audi, down in 6th place. Number 3, can they deliver? The first session was done in that car by Stefan Richelme, handing over to his fellow Monegasque, Stefan Ortelli, a man for all seasons, that's for sure.
I mean, Stefan, irrepressible, enthusiastic, passionate, and, you put him behind the wheel of anything. But right now, and over the last 4 or 5 seasons, it's been an Audi, and he just literally is committed, as is anybody.
Well, there are the times. So you can see McLaren top of the pile. Kevin Estre set that lap, 1 minute 24.234. He is nearly half a second clear of Sean Walkinshaw's best time in the Nissan. Then come the 2 BMWs from Brazil, Attila Abreu and Kaka Bueno doing the driving in that first session. Then Ferrari 5th, Marcus Seefried. Robin Friends up to 6th place. Not a bad job, bearing in mind he's had so little track time. And then you can see the times going down, 1.787 seconds covering the top 12 cars. Very close, and it's only going to get closer. So let's see the final few cars. We had 18 cars going out in that session. And here come the remaining ones. We've got the second McLaren, so they're 1st and 13th, and that's Fabian Tuna, drummed in at the last moment for this weekend, alongside Filip Vlasic, and then the 17 Mercedes, Alexei Karachev in that. That's the bright yellow one he shares with Bernd Schneider. We saw Anders Fjordbach right near the end, setting his time to go 15th. Alexei Vasiliev in the second. Mercedes is 16th, but already the cars are starting to go out for Q2. I said it's quick fire. It most certainly is. And there is the R on the steering wheel. Let's see who's going to be using that. Craig Dolby, it's the R for GTR. Craig Dolby. Sean Walkinshaw did that fabulous job, but Craig Dolby, we think, has that little bit performance edge in the mighty Nismo.
Yeah, I think certainly Craig has got an enormous amount of experience, particularly from a lot of very powerful single-seater cars. A hugely talented young man who, like many, has been overlooked on many occasions. So we'll be interested to see how he can perform and a good time.
And I think,
Sean Walkinshaw.
And John, I think again we'll have some cars going out very early. We've already got one lined up. You can see at pit exit with about a minute and a half until the session gets underway. And others might do as the other BMW from Team Brazil Zero did and go out late. And you do tend to find that pattern, don't you? If someone goes out early in one session, then they will go out early in the second. But let's just run through what's happening. We've had the first drivers go out in Q1. The nominated number 2 driver goes out in qualifying sector 2, which we're about to start. And then, it doesn't matter if the time was set in Q1 or Q2, but the fastest 10 cars are then selected. They're the only ones that are allowed to go out in Q3. And the teams have to nominate who is their Q3 driver. We have a whole list of those we could run through, but we'll let the session unfold. But so what we're doing now is trying to work out which are the 10 fastest cars, and then they can go out to play for one final 15-minute sector. But for now, we've just got to concentrate on the 15 minutes ahead of us. Who's going to come out top? Will McLaren stay top of the pile? Will the Nissan go to the top? Or will the Audis, like number 1, really start to strike?
Well, Lawrence Van Thor is going to be behind the wheel of this particular Audi, and Lawrence Van Thor is arguably, in an R8 V10 Audi, the man to put the car as far up a grid as possible. But these two BMWs, we've not seen them running as competitively as we have this year. First of all, by winning the main race in Nogaro, and I think really it's a bit like the prince kissing the frog or the frog kissing the prince. They realise suddenly they've got a great car and they've got a competitive car, and that's being reflected here in the practice performances and now in the first part of qualifying with 3rd and 4th places.
And just one little spice, a little sting in the tail. 10 seconds to the start of this session. Let's wait for that start. But Q3 is only 10 minutes. This will be 15. So will it be a yellow, green and blue BMW that goes to the top of the timesheets? There's the green flag waved. And Q2 is underway. The first car out is the 74 Fjordbach car. We don't have Anders now. Thomas Fjordbach, brother of, is first out onto the circuit. The Reiter Lamborghini, that could really be one to watch because we've got Nicky Katzberg on board there. We've had Albert Fontana Taxis doing the first session, but Nicky, a real star in the cars. Now, they've not gone out at separate times, they've gone out together, the BMW Sport Trophy Team Brazil cars. Let's see what they can do. Sergio Jimenez driving the 0, and the 77 is Valdenio Brito. We saw him in the garage getting quite excited earlier on. But as we said, John, the expectations for that team with that first win in the bag, but with neither of the drivers that are out on the circuit at the moment. None of the 4 drivers for the team here this weekend were at Nogaro, so the winning team, but these drivers have to prove they can step up to the mark.
Well, I think they are illustrating that the car we know has always had a good performance. What they didn't have was, in a sense, the key to getting into the ultimate potential of the BMW, and they did so, albeit with Maxime Martin and Dirk Muller, a very experienced GT pairing, and they just got hold of the race in Nogaro and didn't let it go.
So one team that knows this circuit very well, 888. They've obviously raced in the British GT Series. They race in Blancpain. He's making some space there because space is everything, and we know that it's a very quick light driver lineup. It's Lee Mole went out in the first session. Now it's Joe Osborne, who always has that little bit of performance edge over Lee. It's getting smaller and smaller. He really fancies his chances this weekend.
Well, Lee Mole didn't have a good run. He was in fact slowest of the 18 cars in his session. Joe Osborne, we know, is going to be a very quick driver behind the wheel of this car. Did a great job this morning, and in fact the car was up to 4th quickest overall on a 124.9, so there is pace in this 888 BMW.
And importantly, as you see looking forward through his windscreen, riding with Joe as you go up to Druids, he's got clear track ahead of him. The car next on track is going through Graham Hill Bend now as Joe powers down the hill from Druids. That should be enough of a gap as long as Thomas Fjordbach keeps going. But of course, in this quick fast session, he has to.
Joe Osborne ran very wide. You could see that on screen from the onboard camera. coming out of Graham Hill Bend. You need to be careful. If you abuse the exit of the corner, then that will get the attention of the race director, and there have been already warnings going out to track abuse, particularly down the bottom bend.
Well, he's got what he wants to see. It's a purple sector time in Sector 1. OK, they're easier to come by at the start of the session. And in fact, that's just been improved upon by the number 0 BMW with Sergio Jimenez. He's taken a tenth of a second off that. But let's just ride with Joe Osborne as he's going around this circuit. He knows so well and loves even more. Through Dingledale, now we go up to the corner that used to be Dingledale, but in the curve, it's now Sheen Curve. And then to Stirling. Trees all around you, barriers to either side. Precision is everything, John.
It is. The exit of Stirling's Bend, you've got to watch. It's very easy to run that curve and have the wheel drop over it, or just to put the car into a real sort of tank slapper of a slide. But Osborne knows the track. He's done a very good job. Purple sector, Sector 2.
1 and 2, and everything he does behind him, the 0 BMW is improving upon. So pole position, but not pole position, top of the time charts for now. 1 minute 24.552. We're waiting for the 0 BMW with Sergio Jimenez coming up to the start-finish line right now. He should be going top. 1 minute 24.489.
But Jimenez has gone quickest, 1:24.4. So what, 63 hundredths of a second between the two BMWs. Different teams, but identical equipment.
And separated by about 10 seconds in real time. So everything that Joe Osborne was doing was being better, but now we're having other people setting fastest sector times.
Yeah, Laurens van Voor on his first flying lap has set fastest sector time in Sector 1. Here he is, coming up to Hawthorne's Bend. This is just shortly round this corner on the way into Westfield. That's where he got called out this morning. He'll not make the same error on this particular occasion. Also, the track and all its surroundings very much drier.
Very much drier, and we did say just ahead of Q2, watch out if anyone could perhaps deliver on sheer ability in an Audi. It could be Laurens van Voor. And at the moment, the target time, 1 minute 24.489, but he has two sectors that are purple. Lovely regal colour, even better in racing terms.
Will this be the first lap time in a 1 minute 23? A high 23.9, maybe a very low 24. I'm going to go for 23.9.
I'm going to go for 24.1. I haven't done the maths in advance. Let's see. And in fact, an Audi has gone top, and then it's toppled again. 23.592. That was an astonishing lap. Christopher Mies had just gone top in the number 2 Audi, and then it was absolutely destroyed. 3/4 of a second, the advantage.
I have to apologise for being the best part of 0.4 of a second pessimistic.
It's a sunny afternoon, and Van Voor rose to the challenge there beautifully. Now,
Nicky Katzberg up to 3rd place.
Well, we said to watch for him, and we're going to also watch for another one of the Audis, the number 3 Audi. See what Stefan Ortelli can do there. He flashes by out onto the back part of the circuit where really the lap is made and lost. The yellow wing mirrors means it's the number 2 Audi looking out there. You have to, it's precious little to tell them apart as they come down the straight, but the number 2 Audi at the moment second fastest with Christopher Mies. He just doing a great. Oh, now looking for, see where this Nissan can make its space in traffic.
It's just gone out on its first lap. So Craig Dolby has hung back with just 9.5 minutes of this session, as opposed to some of the other drivers who went out immediately the track was open. So Dolby looking for track position at the same time, trying to keep out of the way of other cars that are on their flying laps.
Well, he's hoping they're going to be coming into the pits having had their shot of fired their bullet, and he'll have the track to himself. Top of the time charts, the car you can see there, the Audi with Christopher Mies, is second fastest, but he's 3/4 of a second down on the pace set last time around by the sister car with Laurens van Voor. And it stays Audi 1 top, Audi 2 second, and there goes onto the flying lap.
Watch this car, because this is potentially the biggest threat, I believe, at this stage of qualifying, just under 9 minutes remaining, to the time, the outstanding time from Laurens van Voor on the number 1 Audi, 1:23.5. So Craig Dolby, a lot to do. His time this morning was a 1:24.5. He needs to find a second. Big ask, but on new rubber can be possible. But
the good news now, looking through, riding with Craig Dolby, is there is clear track ahead of him, and the car that's next up the line is not someone who's tootling back to the pits. It's the car that's on provisional top position, so it's a it's a green sector, not a pink sector for Craig Dolby. But where is the performance advantage? Where is that GTR strongest around the circuit? Is it sector 2?
No, it's on its rubber. If it's got brand new rubber, it'll be quick in sectors 1, 2 and 3. So whether the team have opted to put on a set of tyres that they may have used this morning, I think they used a new set of tyres this morning just to give Craig Dolby some experience, having a little bit of traffic in his way, but it stays well over to the left, no problem going into Stirling's.
And his chances of going, oh, that was a huge moment.
That's the trouble with running the curb and the exit of Stirling's. The back end can snap into an oversteer like that. but Craig Dolby kept it in control.
I think anyone looking in from the side of the circuit, even from the spectator banking, as a bird flutters in the background there, would have seen how wide Craig's eyes were. The target time, where did that put him? He had to lift off. He went up to 8th place. And in fact, while he was doing that, Christopher Mies improved in 2nd place. Was second, but took 3/10 off the gap between he and the top car of
Interestingly, the time for Craig Dolby matched to within 1,000th of a second his time from this morning. So I would imagine that time Dolby has just said has to be done on the tyres. He may well have done the time this morning on. And then what they will hopefully have is something even better for the final qualifying segment, which will come up, 7 minutes to go on this one.
Yeah, but the important thing, John, he has to be in the top 10 cars. That
Indeed.
time was only good enough for 9th place. So let's just keep an eye on that. But it's the combined Q1 and Q2
his partner,
times.
Sean Walkinshaw, did a time, I think it was second quickest, so they've probably got sufficient in the tank to get them comfortably into the top 10.
Now, at the moment, just looking to see who is moving and making spaces. Of course, the 55 McLaren was at the top of the time charts in the first session with Kevin Estra. And now Rob Bell down in 15th place, but he's setting green sector time, so he is improving. How's the Ferrari doing? Number 333. That's with Norbert Siedler on board. That's just dropped to 8th place. But what's Rob going to do in his second sector? Just waiting for him to complete that. It's another green sector, but he's 1.5 seconds down on the ultimate pace in this session. But as we say, some people set their times very early on. This is coming rather later, and let's see this follow-up lap for the Dolby.
Dolby's up to 5th place.
place.
They're into top 10 territory, I think, very comfortably.
Okay, that's
now.
rather safer for them. Just waiting to see if Rob Bell just about to complete his lap, and he goes 4th. So Dolby back to 6th. So it's all changing at the top, but it's still 2 Audis for Lawrence Vantor and Christopher Mies in 1 and 2.
And we were wondering at the beginning of this qualifying event, what's happened to the Audis? The best one in qualifying practicing was only in 6th place.
And you know, in all of this excitement, we haven't really commented on who is in 3rd position. Bernd Schneider at the moment in the 17th, the bright yellow Mercedes.
And Bernd Schneider driving for the first time on the Grand Prix circuit at Brands Hatch. Can you imagine a man of his stature and his experience? He's driven at Brands Hatch, but only on the Indy circuit.
He's driven in, what did he say? Inter-series. He's driven many times in DTM, but look at him. He's got precious little lap time this morning. He's gone out and he's shown what a pro he is. 3rd fastest. Job done. He brings the big yellow Merc back to the pit lane. So his teammate Alexei Karachev will be delighted, but he knows all the qualifying honours will have to go to that man.
Indeed, and I mean, it's probably doubtful that that car will make it through to the top 10, because Karachev's time may not be sufficient to back up what we've seen from Bernd Schneider. Nevertheless, it illustrates that an SLS Mercedes-Benz, a large car, and a car that's probably more a sort of a 3-hour or a 6-hour endurance car than a sprint car, particularly here at Brands Hatch, in the right hands, is able to deliver.
Well, here's a driver who's very much the right hands. That's Marco Asma, who raced here in all sorts of single-seater formula. He hasn't been here since 2007 in the sister car, the number 71 in the full Russian livery. And again, he bounced over the curbs. Not as much as Dolby, but a good moment.
The difference between Schneider and Asmir is a young man coming from very nervy, twitchy single-seaters still likes a very nervy, twitchy Mercedes-Benz, whereas Schneider likes a comfortable car like your granddad would drive around it.
Well, Marco Asma was down outside the top 10. He's still outside the top 10, just good enough for 11th there. So that's probably curtains. We still have 4 minutes remaining. Let's see what the big BMs can do. That's number 0, Sergio Jimenez, 3rd in the race here last year with Caca Bueno, and he goes 2nd fastest. He just shaved his way past Christopher Mies by 4/1000ths of a second. So now it's Audi's first for Lawrence Vantor. Sergio Jimenez in the 0 BMW up into 2nd place, and Christopher Mies in the number 2 Audi pushed down to 3rd. We've said all along these BMWs are looking very handy here at Brands Hatch. Now late movers, is Rob Bell going to improve on this lap? 3 minutes 40 seconds remaining. That was a great lap there from Sergio Jimenez.
Yes, so the BMW back at the front and sort of fallen back in the sort of 5 minutes since we last saw it.
And a car that went out late in the session, the sister car went out early from ISR, and that was the fuel-back car, but now we've got Marco Bononomi, an Audi Works driver in many categories, including the World Championship.
A great Audi driver and somebody who will drag this car up into the top 10 very comfortably indeed as he comes across the start-finish line.
13th.
Well, I got it wrong again. I thought that was going to be a lap where he would have put the car comfortably into the top 10, but not on that lap. We maybe hit traffic. We didn't pick up the lap at the very beginning.
Well, let's keep a watch on the start of this lap, but what I was just about to say, it looks so measured and balanced. You compared how Marco Asma had to throw the car around. We've seen the McLaren slipping and sliding around the circuit. The Audis look so positive.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that sort of slip, slide, chuck it and catch it type style of driving. It looks spectacular, and it makes the driver look like he's really on the limit. But these big cars, they're more ponderous than a very low weight single seater, which has got a lot of downforce. So you've got to learn that different style to get the best performance from one of these GT cars.
Well, he set his fastest first sector. There's the green in the bottom. Another car that's been going really well. Joe Osborne up into 4th place, top of the Pro-Am class there. Joining this series, races normally in the Blancpain Endurance Series, but he and Lee Mole wanted a crack. But all eyes at the moment should be on that 75 Audi. Needs to get in the top 10, down in 14th place, but Marco Bononomi driving it beautifully. Now coming towards the end of the Grand Prix. And we were just saying, not the sort of driver to do that. He has just done that very thing, showing how at Brands Hatch you go right to the edge, and then that's the moment you've really got to.
The key is if you're going to ride that curb, you've got to ride it and not put the car into the context where it starts to twitch. Bononomi managed to keep the car relatively straight as he comes across the line.
And he stays down in 14th place, but we just set Joe Osborne has just set a pink second sector. He's 4th at the moment, 3/4 of a second down on the ultimate pace, diving into the part of the section we could see out of our window if we dare take our eyes off the screen. Here goes Joe Osborne. Will he go any higher? He improved his time by about 2/10, but he stays in 4th place. So it's Audi, BMW, a certain pattern there at the top of the sheets, John.
Yes, indeed.
He paid for a not a very good start to his lap, Joe
Well,
Osborne.
again, it may well have been traffic. It may well have been something that we weren't able to watch. We picked him up towards the end of the lap. Certainly that middle sector time, that best sector of everybody, is impressive.
And talking BMW Z4s, we've just had a late improvement from Valdeño Brito in the 77 BMW. So at the moment we've got 3 BMWs at the top, in the top 5 of the table, but it's Audi at the top of the charts. Another Audi coming around. That's Markus Winkelhock. He has 2 green sectors, down in 13th place, goes up to 4th place. So is the track getting better, or has he just timed his time?
The combination of things. The track is improving. Again, I go back to those black round Pirelli tyres. That is the single thing that will make more difference to a lap time at any point in a session than any other driver change or mechanical or technical aerodynamic change. Put on the freshest rubber you've got and use it to its maximum on your first flying lap.
Well, he certainly did, and his advantage over Joe Osborne was about it was 0.02 of a second. Just shows how tight it is here in the Blancpain Sprint Series. But look at the gap between first and second, though. That's huge, 0.472 of a second between Lawrence Vantore in the number 1 Audi and Sergio Jimenez, well, in the BMW. But then it gets super close behind.
Yeah, but I mean, what Vantore did is almost superhuman. I mean, he just went out there and obliterated the opposition. I mean, within virtually half a second ahead of the best of the rest, and then they're covered by hundreds of seconds.
Yeah, well, the checkered flag has waved. Lap 4 of car number 88 has been cancelled. So that is the Reiter Engineering. That was Nicky Katzberg, and he'd been doing well. He was up near the sharp end, but gradually he just started falling back down. So he's down in 9th.
Part of the reason he'd been done for that is, I think, on the exit out of Graham Hill Bend, there is the curbing, the red and white curbing. Beyond that, you've got sort of eco-friendly concrete with grass growing in it, a bit like AstroTurf, and that's probably where he may have been penalised.
So top of the time charts, car Audi number 1 there. It looks as it says 0 with the circle on the bonnet, but staying on board is Lawrence Vantore, not just because he's done a proud job there, but because he is the nominated driver to go out in Q3.
So Nicky Katzberg brings the Lamborghini back. He's still about to complete his lap. He's got a personal best in that first sector. The second sector,
well, he can still complete this lap.
Yes,
the checkered flag is waving. He's just coming past the pit wall now, and should see the checkered flag. Will he get into the top 10 on that lap? Yes.
7th. He was 8th. He's now down to 7th, or up to 7th.
Up to 7th.
Up to 7th.
But again, he only improved by a very small amount, but he went up 1 position. It shows 1/10 of a second. Now this is a great run here from number 3, but he is down outside the top 10. Stefano Ortelli. Now that must have been, maybe they gambled on tyres.
I don't know.
For Stefano Ortelli to be down in 16th out of 8. Oh,
that's the reason
that
why.
Would explain.
That doesn't help when you go wide coming into Paddock Hill Bend. So undoubtedly that's made a contribution. So an unforced error from the monogas driver.
He'll come good at the right moment, don't you worry.
But that may be too big a penalty. Down in 16th place, he may not make it into the top 10. Therefore, he will be starting maybe at best 11th.
Well, we talked, John, about the racing is always close at Brands Hatch, but we know that overtaking is very tricky indeed. Now you can see the cars nipping in the back way to the pit lane. Of course, Q3 will be starting in almost no time at all. It's been a really intriguing two two qualifying sectors so far. And what I love at the moment in Blancpain GT, you never know which manufacturer is going to be on top. You have half a hunch that an Audi is going to be well placed and a BMW is going well, but we're still waiting for the big shot to be fired from Nissan. Dolby can do it, but he ended up, in fact, down in 10th place at the end of right at the end, but looking positive. But he did have that huge twitch, had to come off the throttle a wee bit.
I think that was a contribution. I think lots of things have gone on. I believe it. Whatever they did this morning to end up quickest was no doubt again tyre related. I suspect that that's the set of tyre or sets of tyres that they've been using. What they might want to use now is the best of the rest, which may include a new set, because if they can put the Nissan at the front of the grid, be it pole position or alongside in second, it makes such a difference to the 1 hour race that then you're going to confront. So I suspect that the Nissan will be much further up in this top 10 shootout.
Just looking down into the pit lane there, you can see that two of the Audis have been left out on the apron. There's Laurens Vanthoor sitting aboard the number 1 entry, and Christopher Mies, who ended that session third fastest, is just lined up. Robin Freets is coming out to talk to his partner in crime, if you will. Laurens Vanthoor sitting aboard the car. Robin Freets, less qualifying experience, of course, in these Audi R8 LMS Ultras, so certainly Vanthoor's the man to be doing the driving in Q3.
It's a lot of experience for the young Belgian, and he needs more seat time, literally. Well, he'll get plenty of that later in the year when he goes and takes part in the 6-hour endurance race at Paul Ricard, part of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and then, of course, the monster Spa 24 hours. And, of course, Audi winners there last year and looking to consolidate that performance again this year. Maybe it will be the blue or almost turquoise and black colour scheme on that car that will again stand on the podium in Spa.
So weather conditions still fantastic here. A little breeze. You can see the flags fluttering up and down the length of the pit lane. It's blowing across the track, in fact, sort of into their faces as they come back into the Indy section of the circuit, the bowl, if you will. Craig Dolby sitting on board the Nissan there.
How's that though?
So if you just come in there, you'll see, and you don't recognise that Nissan, that's because it has a new livery. It's very pale blue in certain lights. In bright lights it looks as though it's completely white, but trust me, it's very pale blue. The roof is white, and it may yet change colours a few more times as it goes darker.
It's the sort of colour, if you remember in your youth, Bruce, you used to go to a disco and they had ultraviolet lights. You could always tell if your dance partner had artificial teeth or natural teeth because they glowed in the UV light.
I rather hoped when I was a teenager that none of my partners had artificial teeth, John.
Anyway, Sean Walkinshaw just chatting to Craig Dolby and one of the engineers, and really looking forward to getting a much better event, because in Nogaro they were taken out by that first corner shunt, and then they struggled a little bit with technical problems back in Monza in the 3-hour race there, the Enduro. The car has got pace, there's no question about it. Both drivers are capable of delivering a really outstanding performance. They just need everything to slot into place, and this may be their weekend.
So let's just refresh our memories what happened in Q2. Doesn't Brands Hatch look fantastic? You can see the big sweep through Paddock Hill Bend, and the sky is blue, so perfect conditions for Q3. It will be a 10-minute session, so very, very quick fire. All the nominated drivers sitting aboard their machines waiting to go out and try and claim pole position, but of course only 10 cars will be out in this session. 10 cars across 10 minutes. It's going to be really, really interesting.
Well, of course, it makes a big difference to those 10 cars. There will be 8 fewer cars on track, so therefore the likelihood of getting caught with a car either on an out lap or a car on an in lap, and you're actually on your best timed lap. But nevertheless, that is a part of the skill of qualifying. It's not just simply about being very quick in a car. You've got to judge it correctly.
Now, just a refresher, here's the results of the last session. Q2 and the number 1 Audi, top of the time charts. Brilliant lap there. Only one below 1 minute 24. And that was Lawrence Vanthoor. BMW with Sergio Jimenez is second fastest. Third place, another Audi, Christopher Mies. And you can see how close it is from second place down to the bottom of that timesheet. Only half a second between them. But Vanthoor has the advantage at the top of that timesheet in the number 1 Audi. All the way down in 12th place to the Rinaldi Ferrari. 0.94 of a second off the ultimate pace. So really, really tight. But hats off to Lawrence Vanthoor, fastest of all. 1 minute 23.592 seconds. How fast will the ultimate lap be? We will see. And bringing out the rear, you've got the GT Russian team number 71 in 13th place. The 75 Bononomi Salakada Audi, we expected better, down in 14th. Bentley's not been their weekend. Jules Simkowiak, Olivier Lombard down in 15th. And then Stefan Richelme, Stefan Ortelli don't get to play in Q3.
Well,
not fast enough.
Stefan Ortelli, of course, had that moment on the exit of Paddock Hill Corner, and consequently he blew it.
Blow it, he did. The green flag is waved. 10 minutes of action ahead of us for the fastest 10 qualifiers from Q1 and Q2. Nobody wanting to be first on the circuit, but that clock is going to turn over very quickly indeed, John.
Well, I think it's going to be a one-hit wonder pretty much for everybody, and they will do an outlap, look for the best position. Hopefully they're not going to meet a slower car, as I mentioned, on coming in or on an outlap. So they are sitting back and waiting. Eventually somebody will go out and take the opportunity. You can never guarantee, if you wait until the last moment, that you will get a clear track, because everybody's thinking much the same thing. Now
you wonder what rubber they put on that car. We've talked time and time again about the increased importance at Brands Hatch of putting your car on the front row of the grid. Lawrence Vanthoor leaving the pit lane there, the first car of the 10 out onto the track. Is it worth guaranteeing or giving yourself your best shot at pole position by sticking new rubber on? What have they used so far? We can't tell from this distance.
I mean, it also depends on the reality. Do you believe that your driver car pairing has actually got the ultimate performance to put it onto pole position? In the case of Vanthoor and Audi, unquestionably. The case of the Nissan Craig Dolby, most likely, but not necessarily everybody. Looking further down the field, some of the drivers have got the Pro-Am drivers or the Silver Cup drivers, but principally the Pro-Am drivers may decide just to run on a set of used tyres and keep the new tyre for the opportunity on Sunday morning and then later on Sunday afternoon.
Yes, and we saw in Q2 Craig Dolby had that lurid moment out over the curbs, foot fully planted through Sterling's, a big twitch and back on the track. How confident is he? Those Audis look really not nailed to the track, but they're very well balanced. But certainly the big, taller Nissan looks much more of a handful. Well,
this probably got a slightly higher centre of gravity, which is always a disadvantage in any race car. You want to get all the weight as low as possible. And riding the curb, it's the nature of that curb on the exit of Sterling's that really causes the problem. And drivers sometimes allow the wheel just to partially drop off the outside of the curb. That's where you get that big tank slapper coming in as Lawrence Vanthoor begins what may be his one and only flying lap in an attempt to get pole position.
Well, going out first could have been a very good thing to do, because he's got clear track ahead of him. He's through the dip and going up towards Druids, while down through Graham Hill Bend is the next car on the track, and that is Joe Osborne in another car that could be tipping for pole position, which is the 888 BMW. But the driver we're looking at drove beautifully in that last session, Lawrence Vanthoor. He blotted his copybook this morning with that incident going off the circuit, going out of Westfield into the drop down to Dingledale. But now the conditions are much nicer. He knows the track all the better. Purple first sector time on 26.699. That's way quicker than we saw. Those were new tyres that were stuck on, John.
Well, in that case, either that he's looked after those tyres extremely well, or they're using again a new set of tyres, because that's a strong first sector, waiting for second sector to come up very shortly as he comes into Westfield Bend. Corner that caught him out this morning, not a problem now, and lets the car run right out to the edge of the track, then brings it back into Sheen Curve, and he just carries the speed all the way through. Then he makes it look easy. There's no apparent view of overdriving, runs the curb on the outside, but it's all positive moving forward. His fastest overall second sector, which you'd expect. He's the first car to complete a flying lap. Question is, can he improve in that 1 minute 23.5? He did what 10 minutes ago.
The car almost looked as though it was floating as he poured it through Sheen, through Sterling's. 1 minute 23.269. He's taken another 2/10 or so off that time. Right, that's the target time. Can anyone beat it? Very strong opening flying lap there.
I think that's going to be pretty tough for anybody. That's 7/10 of a second quicker than anybody else would have achieved, in effect, in the second practice qualifying session. As we look now, fastest personal best, but not good enough.
Not good enough, and that's from the same stable, the Team WRT stable. That's Christopher Mees went very well at Nagara, going very well again here, right out to the edge of the circuit as he goes through Clark Curve onto the curving start-finish straight. Will go into second place, I'm sure. Yes, he does, but he's 0.8 of a second down. Yep. So that just emphasises what a great job it was by Van Tor. Now we're riding with Craig Dolby as he crosses the start-finish line. He goes second, 24.053, only a fraction of a second ahead of Christopher Mees. So wow, that really emphasises using all the track there, John.
Well, you see, he had a bit of a moment in the middle of Paddock Hill Bend and had to really get out of the throttle to check the car to ensure it didn't run wide on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, but up to second place for the Nissan GTR. And down through Dingledale, up out of Dingledale, through Sheen, over the edge of the white line on the outside of the circuit. Sergio Jimenez pushing very hard indeed. How are his sector times at the moment? He's got 2 greens. He was pretty close in the first sector to the ultimate pace, about 1/10 of a second down on Van Tor. He should go into second place. Joe Osborne's second place right now in the BMW, the 888. So will it be a Brazil BMW that usurps that British entered car? Third place, so it's...
Let's just read down the times. 1 minute 23.2 for the fastest time of all. Then we've got 4 cars on 1 minute 24.0, but at the moment it's Osborne in second place, Jimenez in third. Dolby in fourth. Long faces, not quite as much euphoria in the Team BMW Brazil garage. Let's see what their sister car can do. Waiting to see what Valdeno Brito, but that's not the faster one of their pairs. An 888, that's the 888 car, of course, for Joe Osborne, now down in third place. Now it's fourth place, because as I speak, Nicky Katzberger goes second in the Lamborghini.
Well, we have always known the Lamborghini has got out and outpaced. Nicky Katzberger is one of those drivers who's illustrated that in the past. He's done it again. He's only the second or third driver now, because we've seen Craig Dolby has elevated himself up to third place on a 23.727 as opposed to second place 23.703. 0.024 of a second between second and third.
4 cars now in the 1 minute 23s, way out clear by nearly half a second. The number 1 Audi and 888 BMW drop down into 5th place. Will be no improvement. There is no improvement. You can see the first sector time was poor for Joe Osborne. He's dropping into 5th, so it looks like their bolt is shot as he goes up to Druid. 73, they set, that's Craig Dolby, third fastest at the moment. He set the fastest third sector of all when he completed that lap. He needs to find just under half a second. Can he do it? We've got to see that first sector would have to be purple. It's not even green. He's slowed down in that first sector. Maybe the tyres have had their best. Maybe he had that little moment going on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend there, but Nicky Katzberg putting in a fabulous job. Second fastest at the moment. Not his fastest in the first sector, but he has set his fastest second sector time. Now he's bursting back onto the Indy circuit, coming through Clark Curve, feeds into Clearways. Clearways feeds onto the start-finish straight. Can he take a shot? When you get closer, oh, he holds on to second place, and then now just 1/100th of a second behind him is Christopher Mees. It's Audi first, Lamborghini second, and then Christopher Mees third.
Yes, and the Audi just ahead of the Lamborghini as they come up into Druids. So, I mean, everybody who has just set these very, very quick times has got the best out of their car, best out of the tyres, and it's be unlikely. Christopher Mees is the big improver in that last couple of laps up to third place. A second row of the grid alongside Craig Dolby in the Nissan, but it's still Laurens van Thor that's got that almost half a second advantage over Nicky Katzberg in the Lamborghini on the front row of the grid.
We're now seeing very few improvements at the front end of the lap. Looking at 10th fastest car at the moment, that's Rob Bell in the 55. That's McLaren up 1 position, but that's all. So maybe there was no new rubber there for Rob Bell. Kevin Estre was so strong.
I was just waiting to see what's happened to Ben Schneider, and he's actually gone into the pit lane as one of the 2 BMWs comes across. That was Jimenez, still in 6th place.
Well, with less than 2 minutes remaining, 1 minute 45 to be precise, that's the end of the session for the number 70 Mercedes, bouncing over the curb and really getting the tail out there. Christopher Mees trying to retrieve this lap. He stays at the moment in with the big yellow wing on the back of his number 2 Audi. Third fastest. He has to find just 1/100th of a second that he can get onto the front row, but that twitch I don't think will have done him any favours whatsoever.
So he comes across the line, last lap, 124.223. Best part of half a second away from his best overall, 23.7. So that's pretty much now the grid set. Waiting for car number 6 to come through, Marcus Winkelhock. And Winkelhock is currently in 8th place, 124.053 was his fastest lap. 24.2, so again, no improvement for...
What we're tending to see, John, is their second best lap is about a fifth of a second down on their very best. They can seldom get 2 really sweet laps.
Well, that essentially is about the tyre. The first flying lap will always be the quickest, unless you've had a really serious issue on track where you were compromised or delayed.
Well, we're getting very few improvements right at the end. We've just had the McLaren gain a tiny bit, but stays with Rob Bell on board in 9th out of the 10 runners.
We just saw Enzo Eid very happy indeed that his man Christopher Mies, 3rd quickest overall, 2nd row of the grid, and that's the way it's going to stay. Session is all but over. Nobody's doing any...
Yeah, in fact, we can see Valdenio Brito. Late start to the series for he and Attila Abreu. They missed the Nagaro Open. He is just cruising back in, 5th fastest. He's not going to be dislodged from there. And the checkered flag is being readied on the start-finish line, but the 77 BMW being brought in. In fact, at least it has the bragging rights within the team, because it's 5th, and the sister car with Sergio Jimenez is in 6th place. There's Rob Bell going around the back part of the circuit. He's set quite a quick first sector.
What's he doing that for?
I don't know, the checkered flag's out, but he hasn't completed his final lap. He's down in 9th place. Well, he's certainly got clear track ahead of him, but he's using, again, clouting the curbs on the inside at Sheen.
Overdriving at this point, trying to drag a time out of the car. You're clumsy coming through Westfield, aggressive going through Sheen, and on the exit of Stirling. So Rob Bell looking to improve on a 24.1. He may do it, but I think he's going to pit lane.
He will pit.
He realised it overdriven, and the time would not be there, so why waste another lap?
I expected to be much closer at the top, but Lawrence Van Tor went right out. He was the first driver on the track in Q3, and he made the session his own. He ended up nearly just under half a second clear of everybody else. So Robin Freed's taking the applause. Of course, he only drove in Q1, but it was his partner, Lawrence Van Tor, who has claimed pole position. And for Robin, of course, and Lawrence, they didn't get to start in Nagaro, so maybe this is the chance to put their championship back on track. Pierre Dudonic shaking his hand there.
Yes, indeed, very important when a young driver enters a very experienced operation. It's not just a team, it's an operation, the WRT ID team. And of course, when you're driving single-seater, very much everything is focused on you, whereas when you join a GT event or a GT team, there are many more elements to consider, and not least of all, it's not just about you, it's about you and your teammate. And sometimes you've got 2 teammates, as you will do in Spa, maybe even at the 6 hours of Paul Ricard.
So the skies were grey this morning, and certainly the sun came out and made it look beautiful, but not beautiful reading for anyone apart from the number 1 Audi crew. 0.434 of a second was their advantage, which is huge in this championship. Lawrence Van Tor claiming pole position. A great run from Nicky Katzberg to go second, but look how close it was between his Lamborghini and Christopher Mies, who was 3rd in the number 2 Audi. And then Craig Dolby, a good and very exciting ride to 4th place overall in the MRS Nissan. Then we had the 2 BMW Sports Trophy Team Brazil entries with Valdenio Brito just ahead of Sergio Jimenez, and then Joe Osborne, he showed great promise and then just dropped away slightly in the 888 BMW. Marcus Winkelhock couldn't finish it off in the number 6 Audi, and then Rob Bell, very twitchy, couldn't quite achieve what his teammate Kevin Estre did. He was 9th, and Bert Schneider bringing up the rear, 10th place at the end of a really exciting qualifying session here at Brands Hatch. We now know the grid for tomorrow's race. So that's the top 10, and as you can see, nearly half a second between first and second, and the rest very, very close indeed behind them. But bragging rights at the moment to the Belgian Audi Club, Team WRT, and Lawrence Van Tor gets the biggest prize of all. Pole position, you can see he and his partner Robin Freens in the pit lane, very happy with life, but a good job. Pulled it out of the bag, and they will have learnt a lot as well. Brands Hatch never teaches nothing.
Yes, and it just illustrates the maturity now that Lawrence Van Tor is enjoying, as well as the speed. And when it comes to dragging a time out, and having, remember, lost a lot of time in the second free practice session earlier in the morning, that's valuable track time that's lost. That's all about setup, not just for a single out-and-out fast lap, but really for what you need for the race. And here, of course, the car in certain parts of the track will be getting into the bump rubbers as it goes down bottom of the hill at Paddock Hill Bend and another part. So you're having to spend a lot of time to try and get the car a package that works all the way around Brands Hatch.
All the way around the lap indeed. So keep that flow going. Enzo Eid coming out to congratulate his teammate. So the Team WRT camp very happy indeed. But yes, John, you're quite right. The achievement all the greater for Laurens Vanthoor. Robin Friens, track time lost this morning. They didn't show it in the afternoon. They looked absolutely supreme. So let's take a look back over the best of qualifying. Brands Hatch looking wonderful in the sunlight this afternoon. Late afternoon sun, early spring, and Audi looking very good indeed out on the circuit. Very well balanced. Ferrari, the Rinaldi Ferrari started to set some good laps, and the fans absolutely loving it all. But then the number 2 Audi really started to get in the mix. James Nash did some fantastic laps in the number 4 Audi. It seemed as though it could be an Audi show, but we kept having interlopers from other manufacturers, keeping them honest. And one of those manufacturers was Nissan, and Craig Dolby really put the cat among the pigeons. Eventually, he didn't manage to nail it quite as he wanted. Kevin Estre, super strong too for McLaren early on. And there he is, explaining after Q1 exactly how he felt the flow went. Rob Bell listening intently, but he didn't manage to complete the show for McLaren. They ended up 9th overall. BMW Team Brazil, they started putting in some strong laps, and then Christopher Mees really began to deliver in the number 2 Audi. But look at this moment for a big twitch running over the curb, more than anyone else dared or even achieved at Stirling's. That was Craig Dolby. Kept it all together, but that lap was ruined. And then, keeping his head together before the final session, Laurens Vanthoor moved out to the top of the timesheets. He was the first driver out for Q3, had a clear sector of lap, and nailed pole position. BMW fought hard to try and close him down. That was Sergio Jimenez running wide of the circuit at Sheen Curve. Couldn't do anything about it, and it ended up being Audi top of the charts. Christopher Mees ended up in 2nd place. Craig Dolby in the Nissan ended up in 4th, not for want of trying. You could see the tail of the car starting to come out, but the checkered flag came out. Audi were delighted. Vanthoor on pole.